lid for us. And I think Peter enjoys it too. He's really a master of the Old Testament now. So my advice would be, don't be afraid to share your concerns with your pastor. He may not even be aware that you have concerns. So from time immemorial, children have learned how to love God and how to be holy people and good citizens primarily from their parents. After all, Jesus was taught the carpentry trade by his earthly father, St. Joseph. For the most part, at the beginning of the United States, folks who were literate learned at home. And when you think about it, they knew enough to be able to read the King James Version of the Bible and the Federalist Papers. They knew enough to be able to read, understand them, and also to write about them. And that's something that some modern high schoolers and some adults would have a problem with today. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John and Abigail Adams, George Washington were all homeschooled. And even the patron of Catholic schools, Elizabeth Ann Seton, was herself homeschooled. Okay, so from a historical perspective, homeschooling is the norm, not the exception. And homeschooling parents should feel very confident that by homeschooling their children, they are following a time-honored, centuries-old tradition. But I will admit, everybody knows that you're still swimming upstream in this culture when you choose to homeschool. So why would you bother to do something that's a little bit out of the norm and it's going to take a little bit of extra work? Well, for one thing, homeschooling is good for the family. It just is. All that time together makes kids grow a more deeper love and respect for their parents. And I would say the reverse is also true. These shared experiences of field trips and lessons, laughing and learning together make strong bonds that will stand the test of time. Homeschooling also gives families more of a gift of time to spend together. Childhood is fleeting, and homeschooling just helps to increase the number of memorable and special moments between parents and children. Number two, schooling adapts to the family, not the other way around. If the dad and the family can only get this vacation in September, then you can go ahead and take that vacation time in September. School time can be postponed, or you can even incorporate it into the vacation. If dad is off on Mondays, school can happen on Saturday instead. If the basement floods and there are no clothes, the pressure to get the kids to school off on time is off. Birth of a baby, death of a grandparent, weeks of strep throat, pregnancy, childbirth, all of these are times when homeschooling can be shortened, lessened, or postponed to a better time for the sake of the family. Relationship with siblings. When I was growing up, my sister and I didn't see much of each other during the actual school day. The school environment encouraged her to have her friends and me to have my friends, and sometimes those outside relationships took precedence over our relationship as sisters. In homeschooling, siblings become great friends to each other. Two of my older teens are such good friends that they formed a band together. They make music and they travel and perform together. Likewise, my younger teens, just one of his sister, are good friends, and they actually enjoy each other's company. And my two daughters, who are 6 years apart, find ways to play together. Now, I'm not saying my kids are perfect. They still fuss and fight, right, Noah? Yeah?
That's right.
But they have a deep and important relationship with each other that I didn't see with my sibling or with other siblings or my friends when I was a teenager. 4, living the faith. In home, children can be surrounded by signs of the faith. Crosses, rosaries, pictures, statues. Items that would never be allowed in a public school classroom are commonplace in the home school. They just change the atmosphere and make it a special place to live and learn. Holy days, feast days, and the church year become part of the family life to be lived out during the day, and not just something to be read about in a book during a religion class. Number 5, homeschooling allows for a customized education that fits each child's learning style. The rambunctious little boy doesn't have to sit still for 5 or more hours a day. He can make a map out of play, or he can go outside and pretend that he's General Custer, or he can take his instant camera outside and see how many pictures of birds and insects he can get, and then come home and try to identify them all. Kids can learn in a way that is best for them, and that might mean sitting quietly with the textbooks and a list of things to do. I was like that. I would have loved them to learn that way. But it also could mean, being very hands-on, or going to a computer, or going outside. The world is the homeschooler's classroom, and there are many options. I wanted to show you right now, if you are trying to determine your kid's learning style, You might want to get, I got these from the library. Kathy Duffy and Mary Pride. They go over learning styles. They also give tons of curriculum advice, and those are in the pamphlet. I believe it's the yellow pamphlet, okay, with the call numbers and everything. But I just got these at the library, and I'll be turning them in after this time. Let's see. Okay. Slow learners aren't stigmatized, and gifted learners aren't told to slow down. Kids can go at their own pace without artificial deadlines. I've had 2 children now that didn't learn to read until they were almost into their teen years. I can't imagine how they would have been treated if they were in a school system. You know, they would have been held back as slow, you know, and my oldest son, who had the hardest time learning to read, he's not stupid. He's an EMT. He's actually going to come later because I asked him because it's my birthday so you guys can pay, so he can say some nice things about homeschooling. And he said, well, I don't know, I'm going to have to think about it. Anyway, learning is real. It's done because it's interesting and because the child wants to learn the subject and not just pass a standardized test. Homeschooling provides real socialization. It's not age segregated and peer dependent. In the real world, we aren't all separated by our birthday. Number 9, parents can regulate the curriculum and the resources used to teach the curriculum. You can pick the books you want and the resources, the websites, all of that is up to you. And finally, family values aren't undermined by the schools or the teachers. You can address when you're going to talk to your children, if ever, about same-sex marriage, contraception, abortion, how the church will use those things. And then you're not going to be undermined by the schools maybe telling them other things, or maybe even teachers who aren't living according to a Catholic lifestyle. You know, their kids are hearing one thing, but there's a teacher that they may look up to who is showing them something different. So, when you become convinced maybe that Catholic home education is for your family, here's what you need to know in the state of Ohio. And this is where you might want to follow along with this. Okay, first of all, it's your constitutional right to homeschool, and that was established back in 1972, Wisconsin versus Yoder, which I thought. Also, the Supreme Court in Ohio also verified that with Ohio versus Bushner in 1976. And then, as I was getting ready for this talk, you would be surprised all the stuff that happened behind the scenes to get our homeschool laws together, because they had parents who wanted to homeschool, and they were told, okay, you can homeschool, but you're going to pay us a fee, because they were losing money on, you know, so you can homeschool in Ohio as long as you pay the fee to make up the difference that they were losing, which they sued on that. And they got a board together, I think about 12 people on the board. Half of them were pro homeschooling, half of them were not. And it was a big contention. It was supposed to take them 6 months, it took them over a year. But they finally came up with the regulations, Ohio Revised Code 3321.04, and that is still what homeschooling is under in the state of Ohio. Let's see. In Ohio, you have to homeschool, you have to have a child in school between the ages of 6 and 18 years of age. And the one thing I found was interesting is you need to talk to your superintendent about that 6-ish. Is it when they turn 6, when they're, you know, that type of thing. That was kind of up to the superintendent. You may homeschool anytime during the school year. You can be at the beginning, you can pull your kids out and homeschool, you can do it at the very end. All of that, you are allowed to homeschool anytime during the year that you want to. But it is a long-standing statewide practice that if you're going to do it at the beginning of the year, that you try to do it before, you try to get your notification in before the first school day in your district, okay? This is tradition, it's not wrong. And you're also notifying your superintendent. You aren't requesting his permission. Every year I get the note back that they're granting me my permission. I'm like, oh, thank you, but I didn't really ask your permission. You're notifying him that you're doing that. Okay, so if you look at this form, this is kind of what you're going to be filling out every year, okay? It's pretty